You've heard it a million times, right? Mindfulness is the secret key to a calmer, better life. It's sold to us as this totally safe, universal good. But what if that's not the whole story? Okay, let's dive into the surprising and honestly sometimes unsettling reality of what can happen when we sit down and try to quiet our minds. So this is the dream, the grand promise, coming straight from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's basically one of the godfathers of the modern mindfulness movement. And it's an amazing vision, isn't it? The idea that this one simple practice could completely reshape not just you and me, but all of humanity for the better. It's powerful, it's hopeful, and who wouldn't want that?
And then there's this, a totally raw, honest take from someone who tried it. And, well, it backfired. Big time. This huge gap between the promise of transformation and the reality of feeling stupid and just worse, that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
For a lot of people, the instruction to just be present or sit with your feelings sounds great. It sounds peaceful. But what if you have a history of trauma? For some people, that stillness isn't a safe harbor. It's the opposite. Let's really look at what that can feel like. Wow, you can just feel the desperation here, can't you? This person is actively trying to find a way out of their anxiety, but the very thing that's supposed to be the cure, meditation, might actually trigger the exact feelings they're terrified of. It's a horrible catch-22. You're stuck. And right here, that fear becomes a reality. This user is directly linking meditation to derealization, that deeply disturbing feeling like the world around you isn't real. We're not talking about a minor side effect here. This is a terrifying experience that literally left them paralyzed with fear.
So here's the thing, and this is so important. If you've gone through trauma, your mind builds walls and defenses for a very good reason, to protect you. Meditation, by its very nature, asks you to lower those walls. But if you do that without a therapist or some kind of support system, it can be like opening Pandora's box. All of that repressed stuff comes rushing out, and you're left feeling completely overwhelmed and just awful.
Okay, these personal stories are really powerful. But you might be wondering, are these just isolated incidents? Are they outliers? Well, a major scientific review decided to look at the data from thousands and thousands of people, and what they found is pretty startling. 8.3%. So a huge systematic review that pulled together 83 different studies found that about 8.3% of people experience what they call adverse events from meditation. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but think about the millions of people meditating worldwide. It's not a fringe thing at all. So what exactly are these adverse events? And this is where it gets really ironic. The top two most common negative side effects: anxiety and depression. The very things meditation is so often recommended for. And the list goes on to include cognitive anomalies, like problems with memory or focus, stress, and even, in some cases, psychotic symptoms. Now this is fascinating. When scientists studied meditation in a controlled lab setting, the rate of these negative effects was pretty low, under 4%. But when they looked at observational studies, people just meditating out in the real world, that number shot up to over 33%. That's a huge difference, and it suggests that what happens in the lab might not be telling us the whole story.
And this is the part you really need to hear. This isn't just a risk for people who already have mental health issues. The study makes it crystal clear that anyone, even people with no history of mental illness whatsoever, could potentially run into these serious, challenging experiences.
So we've looked at personal challenges, we've looked at the data, but we have to go one step further, into the most extreme cases. Because in the wrong hands, these same mind-altering techniques can be systematically weaponized, especially in high-demand groups and cults. So the goal here isn't wellness, it's control. The idea is to completely overwhelm your senses and break down your ability to think for yourself. When you combine things like hours and hours of chanting or meditation with the lack of sleep and food, you can push someone into a trance-like, dissociated state. And in that state, a person becomes incredibly suggestible, incredibly dependent on the group.
And there's a name for the result of this process, a term used in psychology today that is absolutely chilling: soul murder. It's the deliberate, intentional dismantling of a person's identity, their core self, all to make them loyal to a leader or an ideology. And if you want to understand the terrifying endgame of all this, well, George Orwell said it best in 1984. It's not about helping people, it's about power. It's about taking a person's mind apart and rebuilding it into something you control.
All right, so after seeing the personal stories, the hard data, and the absolute worst-case abuses, where does that leave us? What does a safer, smarter, more informed approach to all this actually look like? Let's put these pieces together. So why does this even happen? Well, it often boils down to a few key things. First, meditation is not therapy, and it's not a replacement for it. It can definitely dig up buried emotions, but it doesn't give you the tools or support to deal with them. And like we saw, for someone with trauma, just being present in your own body might not feel safe at all. That's why this rigid, one-size-fits-all approach to meditation can be so dangerous.
And, a huge part of the problem is just a massive gap in training. So many mindfulness teachers simply don't know that these harms are even possible. So when someone comes to them and says, hey, this is making me feel worse, the go-to advice is often, oh, just keep meditating, push through it. And that can be the absolute worst thing to do, making a bad situation so much worse.
So what can we do? What does a better way forward look like? Well, it starts by just acknowledging that, yes, risks are real. It means if you're going to learn, you should look for instructors who are trauma-informed, who actually get these complexities. It means we should demand informed consent. You should know the potential downsides before you even start. And maybe most importantly, trust your gut. If a practice doesn't feel right for you, it is always okay to stop. There are so many different ways to find well-being.
And I think we should end with this one big question. We all readily accept that meditation has the power to positively reshape our minds, but any tool that powerful can cut both ways. Acknowledging the dark side, the potential for harm, isn't about trashing the practice or dismissing its benefits. It's about finally treating it with the seriousness, the respect, and the caution it truly deserves.